Hello everyone. Welcome back to my course on Principles of Insurance and Risk Management. This is module 5 of this course. In this lecture, we are covering loss forecasting. That means how to forecast losses. Let's move to this lecture. The risk manager can predict losses using several techniques. These include probability analysis, regression analysis, and forecasting based on loss distribution. However, there is no guarantee that loss will follow past trend because whether you use regression analysis or whether you forecast based on loss distribution, these basically follow past trends. So there is no guarantee that your forecasting will be accurate. Now let's look at probability analysis. The risk manager can allocate probabilities to individual and joint events. In general, the probability of an event is equal to the number of events that are more likely to occur divided by number of exposure units. So if forecasting is done based on the probability analysis, it can be calculated with past loss data. Over here, the risk managers need to identify whether the events are independent, dependent, or mutually exclusive. If the events are independent, that means if these are independent events, occurrence of one event will not affect the occurrence of other event. So it means the two events will not have any connection to each other. Secondly, dependent events. It means if one event occurs, other one will also occur. So that's the dependent events. And finally, mutually exclusive events. So if the events are mutually exclusive, it indicates that if one event occurs, other event will not occur. That means if the first event occurs, the second event is not going to occur. Risk managers can also use regression analysis to forecast losses. Regression analysis characterizes the relationship between two or more variables. Then regression analysis can be used, this characterization, to predict values of a variable. For example, the number of physical damage claims for a fleet of vehicles is a function of size of fleet and the number of miles driven each year. That is another example of regression analysis. Over here, we are finding out the relationship between payroll and number of workers' compensation. If you look at the trend, here the data are given from 1998 to 2009. If you look at the trend, when payroll increases, worker compensation claims also increases. So there is a positive relationship between payroll in thousands and workers compensation claims. So if we find out the regression result from these trends, from these two data, we can we will find that y is equal to, which is y indicates here the workers compensation claims. So that means if this is the dependent variable, worker compensation claim is the dependent variable, equal to minus 6.1413, which is the constant, plus 0.1074x. X is the independent variable which indicates payroll in thousands. So also assume that it is predicted that the payroll for the next year will be 4.8 million or 4,800,000. So in this case, you need to predict what will be the number of what will be the total number of workers' compensation claims. So if you insert the value which is 4.8 million or 800,000, you'll find that next year's total worker compensation claim will be 509.38. This is how regression analysis can be used to predict losses. And finally, loss distribution. A loss distribution is a probability distribution of losses that could occur. Here, history of losses the loss distribution is useful if the history of losses trend is supposed to be follow a specific distribution, and if there is a large sample size. If risk managers uses loss distribution, the risk managers also need to know mean and standard deviation of loss distribution, and it is also noted that normal distribution is widely used for loss forecasting. That's all about this lecture. In your next lecture, we'll cover financial analysis in risk management decision making.